Today, we're looking at Diamine Teal. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, can you guess what color Diamine Teal is? Teal. Perfectly named. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a Noodler's Ahab with a modified flex nib to take my notes for this video. I have a lot of head movement going at the moment. I'm leaving it. Before we go to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography. And I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this really nice line across the bottom. It does show that this is probably going to have a little bit of resistance to it. This kind of greenish turquoise pushing its way up. Then we get a nice rich yellow. Then we get a bright blue. This is where we're getting that nice teal color from. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. The only difference that I'm seeing in this is the line across the bottom is much darker, much more there, making me feel that there may be a little bit of hold on here. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on a page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it handles itself absolutely fantastic. That extra fine stays an extra fine. There's no blowout, no blurriness. Perfect ink to be using as a note taker if you like to go back and highlight. That's a little surprising when we look at what's going on with water. Now, most of the area that water was in, it really lifted all the darkest tones. However, just to the left of the H, you can see the outline of where it has completely removed the ink from the paper. Water is all that you should need to get this ink out of your pen. Pen flush doesn't do anything more than water does. I don't know that it's worth the extra chemicals. And the 1/3 bleach solution, although you should not use it, it does completely remove it from the paper. And we see a little bit of an odd yellow staining there. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Diamine Teal has a viscosity of 2.39, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done with the extra fine and medium nib on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Diamine Teal has an average dry time of 19 seconds, making it again normal. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting, the 1.1. It's wet. It's a wetter pen. And it's too dark for me to like the tone of this ink. It's something to pay attention to because I took my notes with a wetter pen and I do not like the tone. But when I look at the writing samples and I see some medium flows, it looks great. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a noticeably lighter tone than the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shading, 13 seconds to dry. Now the medium is the same tone as the extra fine. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 19 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine and the medium show no color variation. We didn't expect it and we didn't get it. And the smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Tomoe River, no bleeding, and yes, we get ghosting. Again, the 1.1 is too dark to be pleasant as a teal ink. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade, but the extra fine is a significantly lighter tone, and the tone is beautiful. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 20 seconds to dry. Medium is a little darker than the extra fine, nowhere near the darkness of the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 27 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it, we didn't get it, and the smear test, you could recover this, even on Tomoe River. Rhodia, no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1, too dark to be pleasant, but it is dark, it is performing well. It's just way too dark as a teal for me. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is significantly lighter. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 15 seconds to dry. Now, medium is much darker than the extra fine, but nowhere near as dark as the 1.1. Still a pleasant tone here. A tad bit darker, and it might become unpleasant. The medium has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 20 seconds to dry. The scrubby for the extra fine shows us a little bit of color variation, but we got none. The medium shows us none, and we got none. And the smear test you could recover. You could recover it if you smeared while you were writing. So because I'm having some tone issues with this ink, sometimes it's nice, sometimes it's not. What happens on yellow rhodia? Well, it's still rhodia. We get no bleeding and no ghosting. That's expected. Still gross. Very, very nice. What happens with the yellow background is beautiful. It really brings out the greenish side of the teal. And it's fantastic on the yellow paper. Really like this ink on yellow paper, not in the wet nibs. Those smears by me. That's why I wrote that. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade. That's not smearing. That's not feathering. That was me. The extra fine is a significantly lighter tone than the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 15 seconds to dry. Now the medium is a couple of tones darker than the extra fine. It is significantly lighter than the 1.1. This is the nicest tone here in all of the writing samples. A medium nib on yellow paper, great. The medium has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shading, 20 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we got none. And the smear test, still, you could recover it. So white lines paper. Yes, it bleeds into the paper and creates a lot of spotting through, but it does not touch the page underneath. It, for me, makes the back of the page unusable, but for other people might not. That's up to you. I see the back of the page as unusable. That looks like a lot of ghosting as a result of the spotting or the bleeding deeper into the page. The 1.1 has feathering all over it. A lot of feathering. All of it is feathered. It has no spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. The extra fine, it performs fantastic. No feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 4 seconds to dry. Medium is the extra fine is significantly lighter as a tone. The medium is much darker than the extra fine, but nowhere near as dark as the 1.1. The medium has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shade, 7 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we got none. And the smear test, you can definitely recover that. P. Berger, it's a student grade French rule paper. Lots of bleeding in. It does not bleed all the way through and touch the page underneath. I don't know. I would not use the back of the page. I think the back of the page is unusable. But to me, this back of the page is unusable, and it's in better shape than this one. Some people would use it. The 1.1 has feathering all over it, just like the white lines paper did. It's gross. No spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. The extra fine, it performed admirably. No feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade, 5 seconds to dry. Now the medium is a darker tone than the extra fine and nowhere near as dark as the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shading, 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We get none, and the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing.
And that is all that I have for the writing sample.
Instead of finding inks that look like Diamine's Teal, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. And I really wanted a nice brown. I went with Krishna's Oak. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Diamine's Teal? I think this is a very pleasant tone given the right pen. Now when I use it in wetter pens, it becomes much too dark for me. It's not, it becomes very uninteresting and just blah when it is put too wet down, and that's because of how dark it goes. It loses some of its beautiful color. But when you use it in a drier medium flow, so a little bit drier than a normal flow pen or a dry pen, the color you get is absolutely fantastic. Thanks for watching.